Howdy folks, my name is Laura, and in this metalworking series, I'm making a mini vise in sterling silver. I guess it's time for me to talk to the camera now. Everything is fine. I will admit to you, just between you and me, I have so much left to do on this project that it's really triggering my anxiety. And I keep telling myself, remember, we do this because it's fun and we like it. But let me show you where we're at now. So I've been up actually for a couple of hours already working on this because there was a lot of like kind of things I needed to do that were not going to be interesting for you to watch me do. So this is what, you know, my larger rectangle tube looks like, or looked like at the end of last session. And I filled in the last couple little pinholes in the solder seams, and it just, you know, has solder slop all over it and it's very uneven edges and it just needed to be cleaned up. And so I spent the time to just file it all flush. So it looks great now, right? Don't we think so? And it matches. And also for the jaws of the vise, I had, I don't know if I filmed this, but I had super glued them together after last session. And I use these yellow clips anytime that I super glue something together, then I'll like clip it with these, and they have like they're really like nice and stiff, you know, there's nothing like a good stiff clamp. Anyways, and so I had clamped the jaws, you know, like both sides together. I want to make them as similar as I can humanly possibly do that. And so if they're super glued together, then I can file them. And so that's what I filed them until they were completely as identical as I could make them. And then I put them in acetone. And then once the acetone kind of like did its work on the super glue, then I was able to pry them apart with a little graver. And now this is what they look like. So it's pretty good, huh? And so each side will have, maybe let me try and set it up for you. Just a second. What do you think? To be completely honest, it almost looks exactly like it did at the end of last studio session. And I did all this work. But such is life. Yeah, so the next thing that I have to do is I have to solder these two plates onto the rectangle tube. And then I have to solder these two plates onto this rectangle tube. And boy, am I worried, because you might not know this, but I'm going to tell you. So when you solder this together, you know, it looks really great. And all the solder seams are now like whoosh, flush. Like I really worked hard to make them look good. And now if I reheat this up, there's a possibility that the seams will, I'm afraid of receding seams, you guys. Like, people might not know that that's a problem, but it is. So there's a possibility that all of these beautiful seams that I've just made will, you know, the capillary action will kind of like pull the solder in away from the edge and create a little dip where the seam is so you can see it. So the problem that I'm afraid of is, so it's like this is a sheet and this is a sheet, And so this is the edge of this sheet, and this is just in between them. And so the seam, there's a possibility it could show up on right here and right here on the underside too. But the underside, you know, if that shows up, it's okay because this will all be flush. And so I'll just be able to like reflush it, no big deal. But the top, it might be hard for me to get in there to like reflush it out. But then after that's done, I have to put the jaw pad across these two plates. All right, so what I just got to start doing is I just got to start the solder job. So you know what that means. Let's get to work. Here's my pieces. I labeled everything. Look, I labeled it incorrectly and then I crossed it out. Okay, so this is the bottom. This is the top. I basically laid out, you can tell by, I drew this line saying this is where the solder is gonna go. Because I don't want to put solder up here because that's not going to be soldered to anything. And so then, then I'll just have to clean it up. So, you know, we're just being very precise, probably isn't the right word. We're being very specific, calculated, measured, all of those things. So usually when I solder, you see me use hard solder. And that's pretty much what I use for like everything because I'm a badass. But for this job, I'm going to use medium silver solder because I am hoping that if I use the medium silver solder, then maybe the solder seams won't recede. I'm really worried about these friggin' solder seams, folks. And then also, I don't know if you remember this stuff. This is yellow ochre. And so this is, I'm gonna paint it on the solder seams to help them not melt. But first, we're not gonna worry about the yellow ochre right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to just flow the solder on these two pieces here, just because that's how you sweat solder something. So let's do it. Let's do it. Is this angle any better? I don't know. I like don't have the bandwidth to worry about camera angles right now. Just trying to like do this project, but then also get the information across or like capture what I'm doing when I'm doing it. So whatever. Anyway, so this is where I'm at. I've got the two sides of the back jaw of the vise, and you can see I've got the solder already flowed on these two pieces, and it's kind of sanded a little bit. I was taught that when you're sweat soldering, that you want to break the surface tension of the solder that might be there. Anyways, so I just do it now. Maybe it's a superstition, whatever. And so I'm gonna put the flux in between here, and then I'm gonna clamp them together, and I'm gonna heat it up. And so now this type of soldering, I've already mentioned it a couple of times, it's called sweat soldering. And it's called sweat soldering because when you do it, it makes you so nervous, you're just sweating the whole time. But of course I want to try and have these little tips match up. And also I need this, to match up here because there's gonna be a jaw pad there. Okay. To be completely honest, I have no idea what just happened, but I guess that's what it's called when you're in the flow. I typically don't stick solder ever as like a general rule, but in that moment, it seemed like a good idea. Woo! Okay, here's where we're at. The yellow ochre really worked well, you know, painting it on the seam lines. You can see them. Yeah, like you can see the ghost of where the seam lines are, but it doesn't seem like they have receded. Yeah, I mean, that was a success. Let's see. It looks like it did a little bit. I don't know if you can see this, but this is what it's not that bad. It's probably not even worth mentioning, but there's a little bit, but that's going to get cut off, so I'm not worried about it. But everything else, it's funny because sometimes I feel like the camera is more forgiving, but right now I'm feeling like the camera is just magnifying all of the sin. It's magnifying all the things that I'm self-conscious about. So, okay, so this is what it looks like without the solder. This is what it looks like when it's completely soldered. And so if that doesn't actually end up getting soldered, I'm going to leave it. I don't care. But I do want to close this gap right here. And I want the solder to be along here. You know, it's soldered. Like, they're not coming off unless they're heated, but I'm going to try and make it look nice too. And then this part, you know, fits in like that. And so I have to, now that I have this like this, I can probably decide how long I want it. Like maybe I want it there. And so then this only has to go in like that much, which is pretty far. That's pretty far. Maybe I don't want it to go in. Maybe I want it to be like this big. And so then this goes in. And it would only need to get it here because I think I need to work on this a little bit more to get it to not get stuck. But I think right now I'm going to work on closing these gaps. And so I have, well, let me get it. This stand here that I had made for my round stock mandrels, which they look like this is the set. And I just got them. And yeah, they did get wet one time. But so this piece of, like, this is just mild steel from the scrap bin. But I was thinking if I put it, because it's square, I was thinking if I put it in here and then on here, and then I could maybe, well, that fits perfect. I could use that and maybe this one. Is this one good? So I would hit along here in the hopes that I would close that, and then I would flip it over, make sure it's like locked in place, and I would hit along here to try and close that gap. We're gonna see what works the best right now. Are you excited? Because I'm a little nervous. All right, that's tight. That's good. I like the way that looks. All right, let's get back to soldering. Okay, so now that it's the end of the video, there's something that I have to come clean with you about. So this day, this particular day that you're watching right now in the studio produced so much great footage detailing the process of the mini silver vise build. And so I split it up into 2 episodes because it was like 45 minutes long. And I think that it's just too long for an episode. For my standards, I kind of want them to be a little bit shorter. And so I knew that if I cut anything out, you guys would know immediately and you would roast me about it in the comments, or at least the best of you would anyway. But of course, while filming that day, working in the studio, I didn't know that I was going to end up splitting the day's footage into episode 3 and episode 4. I just thought it was going to be one. So I didn't know to record a sign off for the first half of the day, which is what you just finished watching episode 3. That's this one. And so I didn't have an outro for it. So I'm recording it now. Even though the camera's not recording. Oh my God. So by now you may have already figured out that the vise is finished. I'm done with it. I finished it and it's in Memphis. I mailed it to the Metal Museum in Memphis because I donated it to their art auction. And I donated it to their art auction because I donate a tiny tool to the Metal Museum auction every year. Like since 2012, maybe, or something. Anyways, I'm really excited to see how much it's gonna bid for, because I'm kind of curious to know how much my work is worth, you know? So the preview, you'll be able to preview my piece and all the other pieces that are in the auction on October 1st. And that'll be online, so you'll be able to see it wherever you are. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes so you can see my vise and all the other things that have been donated to help raise money for the Metal Museum and its programs. And it's always, like, these are some of the coolest artists. And so it's a really great resource if you're looking to build your metalsmithing collection of art. So then on Tuesday, October 17th, the online silent auction will open for bidding. And so if you want this silver vise, wherever you are in the world, I believe you have the opportunity to bid and win it. So a little bit of viewer participation, maybe not. I'm not expecting anything, but I'm very excited. So just to now wrap things up, thank you so much for watching this video. And if you have any thoughts, questions, tips, or tricks of the trade, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. I always enjoy hearing from you. And the fact that you are interested and invested in my projects really makes my life more meaningful. And for that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. As always, thanks for tuning in and sticking it out. I'm so happy to have you. I love you, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye. Mwah! I just need you to be... Oh. How about that? That's better. You know, I use these orange... what color are they? Yellow. They're yellow. Oh, look at the super glue. Created like... That's funny to me. Anyways, that is the super glue that I used to super glue these 2 pieces together. Can you tell I'm stressed out? It's all fine. One take.